So if you woke up today, jumped online, and saw the Philippines trending worldwide, you probably did a double take, right? Like, wait, what is going on? Well, you were definitely not alone. Let's get right into it and unpack exactly why the Philippines was suddenly all over the global news on December 18th, 2025. Yeah, and suddenly it was these three things, all trending together. The Philippines, Bondi Beach, and global news. I mean, that's a pretty unusual and frankly kind of alarming combination, right? It left a ton of people feeling really confused and, pretty concerned. So, what's the real story behind all these headlines? That's exactly what we're going to break down right now, fact by fact. Okay, first up, let's look at the headline that started this whole thing. It all kicked off when Australian authorities confirmed something pretty specific, that the suspects in that tragic Bondi Beach attack had, at some point, traveled to the Philippines. And that one little detail, that single piece of travel history, is what launched the country into the global spotlight. But listen, this is where we have to be super clear and separate what's real from what's just noise. So let's get right to it. This is probably the single most important detail you need to know about this whole story. Here it is. This is the key quote reported by Reuters from the Philippine National Security Advisor, and it's crystal clear. There is no evidence that they received training, assistance, or support from any group in the Philippines. In a sea of speculation, this is the anchor. This is the core fact. And this really lays it all out, doesn't it? The huge gap between rumor and reality. So on one side, you had all this viral speculation, the idea that the suspects got terror training there. But then you look at the verified fact coming from official sources and reported by outlets like Reuters, and it's simple. There's just no evidence of any kind of military or terror training. Their visit was, well, just a visit. It wasn't linked to any militant activity. So this brings us to a really important point. This whole thing is a story about context, not culpability. Let's dig into how a simple travel record got spun into this massive, trending global security story. Which, of course, leads to the big question. If there was no evidence, why on earth did this story just explode online? Honestly, figuring this out is a perfect lesson in how news works in 2025. All right, let's break down how this actually happens. It's almost like a four-step process. First, that little fact about the suspect's travel history comes out. Then, boom, step two, headlines start linking the keyword Philippines directly to the attack, often without the full picture. Step three is where the internet does its thing. Online speculation just rushes in to fill all those information gaps. And finally, step four, what really drives the trend isn't new facts, it's fear. And that's what pushes the story into everyone's feeds across the globe. Now, the official response here is super important. The Philippine authorities, we're talking the National Police, the National Security Council, they didn't just sit back. They addressed this thing head-on. They confirmed, yes, the visit happened, but they immediately clarified there was absolutely no link to any militant activity. And that kind of proactive communication, which was reported by places like AP and Reuters, was so crucial for shutting down misinformation. In fact, Reuters even did a fact check that flat-out debunked claims of local involvement, calling them unsubstantiated and false. But here's the thing. While this massive global story was blowing up, something totally different was happening back in the Philippines. There was some amazing news that got almost completely buried by all these international headlines. So while the rest of the world was focused on this security narrative, the Philippines was actually celebrating these incredible, historic wins at the 2025 SEA Games. We're talking Filipino athletes clinching gold medals. Major local news outlets like GMA and ABS-CBN were all over it. It was a huge source of national pride. And yeah, it was trending too, just locally. And this really puts it into perspective. Look at the global news attention on the security story. It was just massive, and it totally overshadowed the amazing national news about the CE Games wins. It's a classic example, really, of how a single negative international story can completely dominate the entire conversation. Okay, so let's wrap this up with the big takeaway. Here's what we know for sure, and maybe the most important question you can ask yourself the next time a story like this pops up on your feed. All right, let's recap the hard facts. As of December 18th, first, yes, the suspects in the Bondi Beach attack did travel to the Philippines. That part is true. Second, there is no evidence, zero, linking their visit to training, support, or any extremist groups. Third, Philippine authorities were fully cooperative and got out ahead of the misinformation early. And finally, number four, any claims suggesting the Philippines was involved have been debunked by verified journalists. Period. Those are the facts. And all of this really leaves us with one big question to think about. In today's ridiculously fast news cycle, Do you think global media does a good job of separating a small piece of context, like someone's travel history, from outright blame? It's definitely a question worth asking the next time you see a country start trending for all the wrong reasons.